Today's episode is brought to you by HelloFresh. Do you feel like you're stuck in a dinner rut? With HelloFresh, you get fresh, pre-measured ingredients with mouth-watering seasonal recipes delivered right to your door. Skip all those trips to the grocery store. Count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. You can now enjoy cooking and get dinner on the table in 30 minutes or less. With over 25 recipes to choose from each week, there's something for everyone to enjoy.
All recipes are designed and tested by professional chefs and national experts to ensure deliciousness and simplicity. Go to the link in our show notes to get $80 off, including free shipping on HelloFresh, the #1 meal kit.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a very strategic episode of Unprofessional Development. I'm Tedisco.
And I'm Mealy. And today we have with us Principal Al. I had put a tweet out and we were just reminiscing off air about pretend classes that I say that principals take, such as ambiguous email writing and other type stuff. And so we just kind of went back and forth and I said, hey, you're a principal, you know a lot about principal stuff. Why don't you come on the podcast? And he said, fantastic, let's do that. And so we're gonna do that. So
Principal Al, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, guys. I mean, other than the fact that I'm in recovery from this appendicitis surgery on Father's Day, but I'm in good full recovery. I'm back to driving and shopping and doing everything I need to do for my kids and family.
Okay.
But, I'm doing great and honored to be here.
Did you milk it at all? So you like, I think I need a soda. Can you bring me another bowl of chips or whatever it is?
Sound like you're an expert because I surely did milk it, buddy. Let's believe that.
I don't know, guys. I think my other appendix is starting to act up. Maybe you have to do the lawn this week. I don't know.
Yes, sir. But I'm blessed to be alive.
Man. Amen. So we like to give people prompts rather than just running through like a simple biography. We like to mix it up here. So I want you to kind of talk about your skills, your knowledge, your beliefs, your values as an educator and just as someone who tries to help other educators. And it's like you're assembling a team. So whatever one works for you. I don't care if it's the sports team. And so you want to talk about, who the different people are going to be, whether it be basketball or football or something like that. I don't know if you want to use the superhero analogy and use like various people with their skills, and go Avengers on us or go Ocean's 11. I'm a big Ocean's 11 fan. I kind of like in the beginning where Pitt and Clooney are talking about we're gonna need a wiggle wiggle and a hum bum bum and a Jim Joe and a Slim Bam, and they go and they get all the people that have all the different whatever the different skills are for Ocean's 11, the tech guy, the blow stuff up people guy.
My favorite was the Bim-Bombeter, definitely.
The Bim-Bombeter, you need one of those for every school, every Ocean's 11 team. Everybody needs a Bim-Bombeter. But
at least one. That's what rolls off.
So anyway, go away. The floor is yours. So hit the analogy in whatever way suits you.
Yeah, that's actually one of my favorite movies, man. And probably more so because of the diversity in the movie, and not just from racial diversity, but the diversity, the levels of intelligence, right?
Yep.
The sense of humor. Yeah, some people were real dry. Yeah, so there was just somebody for everybody.
Yeah.
But I'm actually going to go to the sports analogy. I'm a huge sports fan from Philly. So, I'm a huge Eagles, Philly, Sixers fan. But I'm actually going to go to the concept of the principal or administrator, the role of that person on a basketball team.
Okay.
And I've often talked about this in some of my lectures, and some folks on social media have commented on it as well. That I always see the principal or administrator as the person who should be looking for the assists, not for the 30 points. So more like Magic Johnson, less like Allen Iverson,
right?
Okay. The person who's looking to set somebody up for an alley-oop to help.
I go back in
up.
Philly sports. How about some Mo Cheeks, right?
Oh, I'm a huge Mo Cheeks fan.
He's going to make sure that Tony, Dr. J and Bobby Jones get fed.
Oh, Bobby Jones, the greatest guy ever, man.
We're going to pause for 20 minutes so I can Google all of those names.
Yeah.
But I just so as a teacher, I worked for administrators who often we never saw. Like we only saw them in the yearbook many times. So when I became an assistant principal and a principal, I just, my goal was to be the person who had no problem with serving, even when I was serving people who I knew didn't like me. who I knew called me names in the teacher's lounge, who I knew, made fun of me when I wasn't around, the fact that I didn't have hair at a young age. I wanted to be the person that in the end I was able to say, you know what, but I still helped you get that layup. I was still the one that helped you get those 30 points because I know in the end my students would benefit from that.
Yeah.
And so I see the principal administrator as being the Mo Cheeks, as being the Chris Pauls of the world, the person that's really helping, everybody else on the team look good, feel good. Not the person who says, I got you in the observation, but the person that comes in the observation says, I got you because I know this has been a rough day, or I know this has been a tough time for everybody. I got you. I'll come back at some other time, or hey, let's talk about this because the goal is for me to give you the assist, not for me to be on the cover of Sports Illustrated magazine. The principal, the administrator is the ultimate point guard, in the world, and the rest, everybody else in the building, they're the people that we're trying to help, become the Kareem Abdul-Jabbars and and the Moses Malones and the LeBron James, Michael Jordans, because when they become the greatest of all time, who ultimately benefits?
Right.
The children do, right?
Yes.
And so that's, because leadership is about service. If you don't serve, you can't lead. I didn't say you won't lead. You can't lead. Now, you may think you're leading, but if you talk to the people who you work with, they'll let you know you're not getting it. And if you can't hack it, they will give you your jacket. So, and I've been doing this a long time. I've been an administrator over 20 years. And it hasn't been an easy job, but it's a job I look forward to going to every day because I know I'm doing it for the right reason. I go to bed every night with satisfaction and wake up every morning with determination.
There you go. I'm going to say something else. Just jump on that sports analogy. Sometimes what I need the principal to do, set the pick for me, baby. Set the pick for me. Just stand there and take the hit. I need to get somewhere. And whether it's the other administrators, whether it's a parent that's coming hard and is just on my back, I need you to be there and help me get free.
That's what I was thinking about, that parent. Set the pick. That parent, that one that comes, the one that's coming, they're going to be loud. They're going to be out of pocket. They just because listen, this literally happens. People may think that we're joking, but there are administrators who close their door and let teachers deal with that, or they disappear. But you know what? But as administrators, we have to be okay with not being liked, but we also have to have the courage to be able to set that pick, because when you do, those teachers will move mountains for you.
Yes.
And I have a story of, I was fighting for raises for my teachers one year, 2017, and my board didn't like it. And my board actually tried to fire me for no reason other than the fact that, and they had a meeting with the staff to explain to them why they were removing me from the building. The staff already knew why they were removing me because they knew I was fighting for these raises. They were underpaid. And the board said, in our discovery, when we find out why we're terminating him, we'll let you know. The staff said, but when you find out, you let us know, because until you let us know, we won't be coming to work. And the board said, well, if you don't come to work, you'll be fired. The next day, 30 teachers took off work. And we had about 60 staff members. 30 came to work because they said somebody has to be here to tell the kids what's going on. So half the staff, you got to go in and let the kids know why we're not there.
Wow.
But, and some of these teachers were teachers who I had to write up. They weren't my biggest fans, but they stood up for me because I stood up for them. Yeah. But they also knew that I was doing my job. And whenever I did it with compassion. But the idea was I had set that pick so many times that when Big Darryl Dawkins came in the way, Chocolate Thunder,
baby, Double D.
Yeah. The staff, they took a hit for me and they were told that they would be terminated. Governor got involved and eventually 5 board members resigned.
Wow.
I was able to get my job back. The parents all had a huge protest, but if not for those teachers, I'm telling you right now, because that was the power in it. The pick that they set, that was a whole wall that they set up. And I know that they were willing to do it because they know that I had done and would do the same thing for them. And they eventually got that raise too, fellas. So that was the ultimate goal, is they eventually, received the raise, as well. So that's,
I'm looking forward to that movie coming out.
Yeah, Lean on Me 2017. Right?
There you go.
I'm actually working on a treatment right now for a script for this. There's so many other intricate parts to this whole story, but it was just amazing that they were willing to to support me. And so how could I ever walk away from that building, right? With these people who were willing to make that sacrifice. So other than the fact that every year at the end of the year, some kid comes to me and says, "Are you coming back next year, Principal L?" My agent's always telling me, "When are you going to leave?" So many people, they leave the profession, they start speaking and doing all these other things. 34 years deep, and I'm still there,
That's
every
good.
day. And
That's good.
that one kid comes at the end of the year and they know. And somebody tells them, it's like the old, Mean Joe Green. You go ask him for the Coca-Cola. You go ask for it. He says, "Are you coming back next year?" I guess I'm going to have to now because it's funny. It's funny you said that, sir, but I really am working on that. And the first thing I'm going to do at the red carpet, I already told my teachers, you all will be on the red carpet. Won't be any Denzel, won't be anybody else. There'll be a bunch of underpaid, hardworking teachers saving Private Ryan every day on the red carpet, spilling food, drinks, because we're not used to eating well, right? So we'll we're always eating on the run. We don't get bathroom breaks, but that'll be our day. That'll be our night to celebrate for every teacher in the world who's given so much, to our children.
Now, not going too deep into it, do you have aspirations to play yourself in the movie, or would you let someone else do it?
Somebody else would have to do it. I have done some acting in the past, but that'd have to be, Will Smith or Don Cheadle, Brad.
Okay.
Something like that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Cool.
Principal L, I'm very curious. The way you talk, you have so much passion, you have a lot of wisdom, you have a lot of perspective. But I'm curious, if we wound back the clock and talked to, Principal L and, his first or second year as administrator, were there things that at that point that you feel like you were really missing out on that you needed to learn?
Oh, no doubt. Listen, my mother passed away in 2002. And when I wanted to become a teacher, I was actually working in sports television for NBA Entertainment when I became a teacher. And I called my mom and said, "Mom, I want to be a teacher." And she said, "Oh, it's the best job you could ever have. Just remember that every teacher's not a parent, but every parent is a teacher." My mom was a paraprofessional at school. When I wanted to become a principal in 1999, I called my mom and said, "Mom, I want to be a principal." She said, "Boy, have you lost your mind?" I said, "Why would you say that?" She said, "Who wants to supervise adults, right?" I said, "But Mom, I'm tired of breaking up fights in the lunchroom, in my classroom." She said, "Don't you know as a principal, you will break up more fights between your teachers than you ever have in the classroom." She said, "But remember one thing, if you're going to be an effective principal, you're going to walk into a school where there are going to be teachers who are there for principal after principal after principal. There'll be teachers there who are teaching the children of the children to talk." She said, "Go in and bow down to those old ladies and learn from them. Don't be arrogant." She said, "Arrogance is the Achilles heel of the school leader." In my first faculty meeting, I used my mother's entire speech that she gave me for my first meeting. I just forgot to edit out the part about the old ladies. So, my first year, I was in big trouble with those ladies. But she gave me some great knowledge to really learn and listen. Don't think because you're in charge that you know more than everybody. And my first year or two, I did struggle with that because I didn't listen to my staff. I was making decisions. I had all these veteran principals coming and saying, "Listen, you don't buddy up with your teachers. They don't come to your house. You don't party with them. You don't get close." The problem for me was my teachers, some had been in my wedding. They were my babysitters, so it was too late for that, right?
Yeah.
But the idea was I started making these decisions. I wanted to convert the school from a K-5 to a K-8 and didn't really seek their input. And they kind of pushed back a little bit. But once I started meeting with them and understanding, they weren't resistant to me and my ideas. They were resistant to change, and most people are. So they need coaching around it. They were against our school being K-8, but 40% of public school teachers have their children in private or parochial schools, which all are K-8 buildings. And then they had to understand, my own kid attended the K-8 building, but I had to help them to understand it. But this helps to empower them because they'll see things get implemented in the building and they'll know that it's something that they've mentioned or recommend. Right. Now, of course, I take credit for it. I don't take credit for it. But they know, wow, even through COVID, some of the suggestions that teachers gave me, getting through COVID, I was implementing them and they would say, "Wow, I remember talking to you about that." It's like, yeah, I listen. And one thing I do too is I'm covering class. If a teacher has to be off or they need to work with another teacher, I'll cover the class. So it gives me a chance to be on the ground, talk to kids, talk to other teachers in a team meeting. So that's another way, of listening. Often people say, "When do I have time to listen?" I'm so busy dealing with, my superintendent. Sometimes you just got to be in the mud with folks. So the old me wasn't a good listener. I was more of a boss and less of a coach, less of the point guard, more of the power forward.
Right.
But as we started losing more games, I decided that, I needed to start distributing that ball, set a pick, play some defense, maybe grab some water. I had to become that utility person. And once I did that, it made me a better servant. Now, I've made lots of mistakes over the years, guys. So I'm not here to tell you that everything I've done has worked. Everything has been right. But the idea is I wasn't dumb enough to do it for 5 years when people would tell me, it wasn't working. Once we realized it wasn't working, we decided, hey, let's retool. Let's try something else.
I always do want to go back. I tell you what, to this guy, I don't know why. Well, I do know why I always go back to this guy. We had a principal on way back in the beginning. His name was Crap Head Teacher. Okay. So this is a British guy, and he talked to my heart. He really did. And you guys, if you ever get a chance to listen to the episode, Principal L, if you don't know Biggie, but like other people that are listening that are, finding resonance with this would really enjoy that episode as well. And he just talked about how if you take care of your teachers, they'll take care of you. And just keep on, he just kept on drilling that home. And one of the examples he used is just a little thing. And it makes such a big difference that a teacher needed to leave early for they had to go to an appointment. They had to leave 30 minutes early. And they're like, I'll make up the time, blah, 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 blah. And he's like, well, what time are you supposed to get here in the morning? And they're like, well, such and such time. He's like, well, what time do you normally get here? Well, I'm normally here 20 minutes early. He's like, so you have so much time that you've already don't just go and go to the appointment you've got to do, or go to your kid's thing that you have to do. Cause I know that you're putting in the time, and just not making a big deal of it and make them fill out any paperwork, and just you know what? We'll figure out those 20 minutes. There's someone in here who will watch those kids for those 20 minutes, and they'll be okay. And the amount of return on that investment that you get from the teachers is fantastic. Just going off what you're saying, I imagine that your retention for teachers is very high, that you don't have a lot of teachers that are leaving year after year. And when you can do that, you can create a culture and you can create an atmosphere where now I don't have to do as much work as a principal, because now if I hire a new teacher, because we know teachers talk,
Oh, yeah.
So every new teacher,
it's hard to make them stop.
The first question they're going to want to ask when they meet the other hands is what's the principal really like? I mean, I know I had to interview, but what's it really like? It might be, what can I get away with? What am I going to get in trouble for? So if you can establish that, then what you get back as a principal is 100 times what you put in.
The best form of recruitment is retention, and the best form of retention is recruitment. So when you recruit good people onto your staff and you take care of them, you retain them, now I don't mean you cater and spoil them, because you can't do that.
No.
But what you do is when somebody's late a couple minutes, you don't badge them over. We're all late. You give them grace. Somebody needs to leave early, but do I need to fill out a form? No, don't fill out a form. You go, like you say, to return on that, because that person, when another school comes and says, hey, we want to woo you away from that building. Now, are you going to do those kind of things for me? Because, I'm getting taken care of here. I feel like it's a family. When people have that family feeling, then they make that choice. Even in a hard to staff. Now, I do work in a very high poverty school. 90+% of my students live at or below the poverty level. Mm-hmm. But I have teachers who have been in my school 10, 15, 20 years.
Right.
And it's simply because they love what they do, but they also know that we do everything we can to try to support them. Now, we'll fall short, but we'll fall short in an effort to try to do it. Not that we didn't want to do it. So you're right. People want to know how's your print, and the same way I'm with you guys, same way I am in faculty. So my staff gave me an award, right? 2 years in a row as the person most likely to hold up a faculty meeting. I said, I'm the boss, right? You gave the boss that award, But the idea is, because before we leave any meeting, I need somebody to tell me why you love this job, because there's somebody in this room right now who's thinking about they could be doing something else. Right. There's somebody and they don't need to hear from me. They need to hear from somebody in this room. Talk to me, talk to them. Tell me why you wake up and do this thankless work. The public doesn't really understand what we do. They want to criticize because they went to school for K to 12, but they never came in. That teacher for a day, principal for a day, that's a joke, right? That's not. I kept those kids off of you, right? You couldn't really come in and substitute in my class.
I've been driving a car for 10 years. I should surely be able to tell the people how to build one, right?
Right. But
they should all get 1,000 miles to the gallon. They should all only cost $500. You know?
But you're right.
That's how cars should be made.
You build a school. You build a school where you create a culture where you're making an impact on those people who are making an impact on kids. And you'll have parents and kids knocking the doors down to get in instead of knocking the doors down to get out. Right. And I mean that from the heart. That's not some cliche I'm giving. I'm telling you right now, when people know that they have leadership who will fight for them and have their back, even if somebody's wrong, right? We're going to talk about that later. In front of this parent, I'm going to have you back, right? Because you're on my team. I'm going to support you. Now, when privately, I'm going to say, well, you might have wanted to reach out to the mom after the third or fourth email, right? Or at least come to me and say, can you reach out to the mom? Because, sometimes some of these folks just don't know how to communicate with the teacher. They think that the teacher's supposed to do whatever I tell them to do. So I understand that. But the idea is, if I'm your leader, I've got to support you and help you get better. And when you know I'm going to fight for you, as long as you're trying to do the right thing, when you know I'm going to fight for you, you're going to go to the mat for those kids and go to the mat for me and for those other folks that you work in that building with. And those people then go out and tell everybody else in the world, you need to come work in my school. I interviewed a teacher one day. I said, how'd you find out about the school? She said, well, I'm a waiter in the restaurant. And I heard these two teachers laughing about, the staff meeting. And I said, what school do you work at? They said, we work at Thomas Edison. Who's your principal? Oh, principal. Well, he's a riot. She's like, well, should I send my resume? Like, send your resume. And that's how I ended up hiring this teacher.
Wow.
Because two teachers were, talking about, like something crazy I said in the staff meeting. I probably was so wrong. You could probably erase my left side and I still wouldn't be right. But the idea was the teachers enjoyed it, talked about it. This teacher heard about it, sent a resume, interviewed it, and I hired and I got a great teacher.
I'm wondering about the other end of it, that I love all this and I love all this positivity. But we also know that there are times when you do have to hold teachers accountable. We know times when you get pushes from the district that are unpopular. We know you got to put out those unpopular things. I'm wondering how do you balance that? How do you still keep that culture while still enforcing those rules and moving forward with the unpopular
right. And that's probably the toughest job for any administrator. They may not talk about it because they don't want to piss off the superintendent or central office or anybody else.
Because they can't talk about it with us, right?
Right. And this is something that should be taught early on in principal prep programs. How do you find that balance? Because I think the idea has to be is we know what comes from central office. We know what has to be enforced, but we also know what's best for kids and what's best for teachers. So what I chose to do, I had an assistant superintendent tell me years ago when I first started as principal, when I was in Philly, because I'm in Wilmington, Delaware now. I've been in Wilmington, Delaware over 10 years. I spent over 20 years in the Philadelphia School District. And she said, Principal L, you're probably going to do something every day that you could get fired for. She said, so you can walk around and play around worried about getting fired, or you can do what's best for your kids and teachers. And it was then that I decided, listen, and here's the problem. I ended up getting fired by the school district of Philadelphia, right? Which is great. I mean, I ended up getting fired. Yeah, fired. This was after I wrote a best-selling book, I Choose to Stay. Arnold Schwarzenegger wrote the foreword. Disney bought the movie rights. So I think there was some envy in central office, but the problem was they wanted to move me to another building, never talked to me about it, didn't talk to my staff. And I just think that's unfair to move a principal from his community and not have that discussion. So I'm going to choose not to leave. And they said, well, you don't have that choice. Why did the superintendent tell me to leave? And I got it. Well, if you don't leave, I'm going to terminate. So they're not terminating Principal Well. I got a termination letter from the school district of Philadelphia. Oof. But I faxed that letter to Paul Vallis, who was the superintendent. He had come from Chicago. And I said, I need you to call me. Call me in 24 hours. Well, I'm going to send this letter to the USA Today, New York Times, Philadelphia Inquirer, and the headline's going to read, the principal who chose to stay told to leave by Philadelphia. And he called me. And he explained to me, all the red tape that goes on, in central office. The reason why they were moving me because as an assistant superintendent had a wife who did a professional development. They asked the principal for honest feedback. She said that the staff didn't like it and they moved her from a school. because she gave them honest feedback.
Mm-hmm.
So then the way for them to clean it up, they're going to move me to the school they moved her from.
Right.
See, it's all chain reactions from poor leadership.
Mm-hmm.
And I pushed back. And because I pushed back, they terminated me. Ended up getting my job back. They didn't let me go back to my school. They wanted to save face. They made me work in central office. I hated working in central office. Yeah. So after 6 months, I said, put me in a school. I'm going to leave the district. So they put me in a school that was going to close. I started Fleischer Middle School, which is actually the middle school Bill Cosby went to, believe it or not, the Richard Allen Project. The concept for me was I learned early on at that point that I can get fired for anything, even if I'm doing the right thing. Mm-hmm. So if you roll something down to me and it's not good for teachers, they may not even snitch. So I'll plead ignorance, right? I'll say I never got the memo. I didn't. But if you're rolling something to me and it's not good for teachers and kids, I'm either going to filter it, right? I'm going to put my own Principal L spin on it. Mm-hmm. Or I'm going to tell the teachers that I'm only giving you this because this is coming from central office, but I'm giving you the autonomy, the freedom, the flexibility to implement it in the best way you see fit for children. And I'm going to support you in that. So we're going to set some expectations for what needs to happen because I need to keep my job, because if I don't keep my job, you can't keep your job. So I need to keep my job. So we can't basically tell the superintendent that, to kiss our behind, but let's do what's right for children. And I mean, we've gotten reading programs where we've been told, no, don't teach phonics, don't teach this, doesn't work. But I have children who struggle with hearing, struggle with vision. We know what they need. So we add on. So we're implementing what they told us to do, but we add on. And that's what differentiation is all about. That's what equity is all about. It's really giving children what they need, but giving teachers what they need. And then the key is I can't throw teachers under the bus when somebody finds out that A or B or C is not getting done. I have to say, it's not their fault. We didn't do it because it wasn't good for our students. And I'll justify it. I'll make a case. I'll provide them the research. A lot of times, many of these programs that are being purchased because somebody knows someone that works at some company. Somebody owes somebody a favor.
Yeah, somebody took somebody out to lunch. Right.
Right. Nobody looks at it and says, oh, man, this will be great for teachers and students.
Yeah.
So somebody's got to have the courage.
Speaking of sports, I got some season tickets right here. We're going to go out to lunch, and then you buy this program and you're going to be happy. I'm going to be happy. And it's a good program. It worked over here. I've got some data that you can plop down if you want some data, because I can, any program can be backed up with some data some way or another. They all have some kind of results from somewhere that it worked. So.
Right. And I'm not here, and I'm not bashing superintendents. I'm sure there's superintendents who push back as well. I'm sure there's supers out there who say, listen, this is not good for my community. I'm not doing it. So I know that they're out there. Yeah. But we also know that there have been, I worked in a school. We applied for a grant. We worked on this grant for weeks. Teachers were coming to my house on a weekend. We worked on this grant. We were approved for this huge grant. It might have been like 40, 50,000. Right? We get a letter from the district saying the grant that you were approved for, you must use it to buy this reading program. A reading program that then went totally against everything we believed in our building. So we worked on this grant to do what? To buy a program that somebody in the district promised that we would use the money, to purchase. And it's just not fair to kids. It's not fair, it's not fair to teachers. So those kinds of things happen. So to get back to your question, I'm sorry, Chris, but the idea is that I try to enforce the rules. But I offer flexibility because with flexibility comes longevity. The key is I want people to always put kids first. Every decision you make, every action you take, because actions and beliefs are really what drive what we do in school. So if your actions match your beliefs and your beliefs are that these children can be successful, if I'm doing the right thing and I'm trying to do that on a daily basis, I'm going to support you. And then when that doesn't happen, then I'm going to find a way to give you some feedback in a compassionate, honest, and authentic way. I'm not going to tell you you're wrong. I'm not going to tell you you're right when you're wrong. I'm not going to tell you, oh, don't worry about it because that kid's not going to grow up to be anybody anyway. No, I was that kid. I was a kid who lived in a home, single parent home, 8 kids, struggling for food, going to the corner store, begging for stale donuts. I was a kid teachers had to bring orange juice and cookies and crackers to school to help make sure that I had something to eat, but they saw something inside me. They didn't think I'd become a teacher or a principal, I'm sure. But because I was one of those behavior kids, I would give an aspirin a headache in school. So I'm sure my teachers struggled, but they knew that they saw something inside of me and encouraged me. And I try to relate to those teachers and say that those children you're working with, that's a little Principal L, in there, and just, and understand that the children who need the most love ask for it in the most unloving ways. So because they're misbehaving doesn't mean they don't like you. All behavior is communication. They just maybe reaching out for some attention or for some love. But I will support you. But also I want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to ensure that our students are successful, socially, emotionally, and even in the community as well. Making sure we're building resilient students who can overcome many of these obstacles and barriers that they have to face.
So kind of tied to what, Tedisco was asking you there and a little bit. Are you teaching K through 8 now or,
K-8.
K8. Okay. I'm going to give you like hypothetical, and it can be for you or you can be to like other principals that might be listening. So you decide something. This isn't a district thing. This is central office, where Principal L decided we're going to have this new thing that I want to happen in every classroom, whether it be every day or once a week. Maybe it's a tardy policy. Maybe it's something to do with how lessons are distributed or an assessment policy or whatever it is that you've decided we're going to do this like this school-wide. And then teacher A says, you know what? I think I know what's best for my students, and I don't care if they're doing it next door. I don't care if every other teacher in this school is doing it. Inside my classroom, I'm doing it the way I like to do it. Has that happened? And walk me through the next step after that.
So that's happened more than you think, right? But
right.
They don't outwardly say it. They don't express it verbally.
No. I close the door and I do my thing, and
right.
You're going to have to catch me doing it.
Right. Right. And
then when you catch me doing it, I'll say, I just did this one time, and I'll do it better again next time. Sorry. And then go back and then once you leave, I go, he's gone. Let's go back. Go ahead.
Right. And that's why I tell you it's important for principals to be present, right? When you walk into that classroom, the teacher shouldn't stop and the kids shouldn't stop. Sometimes I get so frustrated because they don't even stop to say hello to me. But I'm there so much that they just know it's just a part of the day. So yeah. I'm not coming in to make a speech. I'm there to know. So when you're there and you know what's going on, you know what's happening in those classrooms. And again, like I said, when you're there amongst the sheep, the Pope always said a good shepherd knows how the sheep smell, how the sheep feel. When you're there amongst the sheep, you'll hear the conversations because those teachers will get frustrated with that teacher as well. So what I do is I'll one-on-one, I'll talk to that person. I'll ask, what's the issue? What is it about what we're implementing, what we're doing that you can't get over? And oftentimes they don't have any rationale. They really they don't want to do it, right? It's just, they want to do what they want to do. And then that's when I have to sort of go up a level and say, listen, you have to understand you're part of a team. You're not solo. That these children are a part of our family here at the school. They have siblings in other classrooms. So when these children go home and talk about what's happening in the classroom and the sibling come home and that's not happening in the classroom, that parent's going to call me up.
Mm-hmm.
Want to know from me, how come my child's being challenged? How come my child's being given the opportunity to do these things, but my other child is not, right? So you're causing issues for me. You're also not doing your job, right? Mm-hmm. And that's something we talk about often in school. Don't stop worrying about what everybody else is doing. Just do your job, right? Do your job. Everything else is gravy after that, but do your job. Most times, 90% of the time, after one or two of those conversations, most people will change, or I see it's something they can't do. So sometimes they are not following because they don't have the ability to do what we're asking them to do, which is fine because when every teacher's not coming as teacher of the year. So then we got to set you up with some coaching. Right now we got to set you up with some professional development, some personalized professional, because it can't just be one size fits all. Some people need more. Some people need management. Some don't have the confidence. Some don't have the relationship with students, and parents. Some don't even have relationships with their other colleague teachers. Some may not grasp the content that they need. So maybe I call in, curriculum folks, maybe folks who work with the textbooks and curriculum we use, come in and help us, because sometimes I'm reading some of these things, some of these lesson plans and some of these programs, and I don't even understand, so I know a new teacher is going to struggle with this, and I've got many years of experience. So I'm understanding that. And then after that, there's that 1%, is that 2% of people who just say, listen, I've been doing this for 30 or 40 years. I'm not changing now. I'm not doing it. And those are the people that we have to find something else to do. As sad as it may sound, I don't want to come across as being a sneak guy, but you guys right there, you do not deserve to have a principal who allows your child at home that you raised to sit in a room with a person who's intentionally, willfully neglecting their responsibility to educate your child simply because they don't want to hurt their feelings. Right. And that's why I say administrators, my advice to new administrators and aspiring administrators out there, even veterans, you have to be comfortable being the person that may not be liked all the time. Yeah. If I tell people, if I want a friend, I'll get a pet. Right. I'm not here to make friends.
Right.
I am here to make sure that these children get educated and these teachers have everything they need to help these students become successful. The problem is in our profession, and I'm not going to go into why these folks get protected at times, but in our profession, there are people who make those decisions to not do what they're supposed to do and somehow keep their jobs for decades. And it's unfair to our children and to their colleagues as well. And as an administrator, if you're an administrator because you have one or two people who don't do their job, you send an email. I saw this in the tweets you put out there. You send an email out to everybody, knowing that it's only pertaining to those two people. They know you're a coward, right? Or if those people know that those folks are not doing their job, you're not doing anything about it, they lose confidence in you and they begin to look to go, other places. So if you are a new administrator, an aspiring administrator, one who is struggling or one who wants to continue to be successful, you have to be courageous. You have to make sure you know your staff, build those relationships, and get beneath the surface. Everybody talks about building relationships, but I mean really get beneath the surface and get to know people. Find out why they might be struggling. Find out why they might not be doing what they're supposed to do. Look, some of these folks have a sick spouse that maybe getting ready to pass away. Could be any number of reasons.
Oh yeah.
Let's find out. But when you do find out that person just is just not cut out to do this work, then we got to help them find another job. And as a new principal, I had a teacher who would send me discipline letters and say the kids keep throwing crayons at me, and I'm saying to myself, at some point you got to turn around and throw a crayon back. Or do something. If you don't, they're gonna. If you know they're doing this, I'm joking, but the idea is kids. We grew up thinking our teachers had eyes in the back of their head, right? They somehow made us think you're not doing it. If I'm not looking, I can hear you. Because my teacher would say, Salome, you better stop. But she did. I may not have been doing anything, but she said, I'm going to put him in check. So he knows. So so this guy, I eventually had to counsel. He eventually ended up working with, counseling for students who had, some, mental disabilities. And his wife wrote me a letter one day. And my secretary said, you got a letter from, I can't remember, Mr. Lomden. Listen, this is 1999, 2000. I remember this. You got a letter from Mr. Lomden's wife. And I was like, oh man, I know she's probably crushing me for a husband not having a job anymore. She said, she said, my husband has not enjoyed this job for years and no other principal said anything to him. And you came in and helped him find his passion. He has a new job that he loves. He is doing so well. And I want to thank you for being honest with him and letting him know that this wasn't. Now I'm glad I opened the letter because I almost didn't open the letter because I just think it was lame. But that just set the tone for me early on as a principal. I said, listen, you never know when some people need you to help free them from, you know what I mean?
It's not for everybody.
It's all about how you do it. You don't embarrass them in the staff.
No.
You don't embarrass them in front of kids. You don't embarrass them in front of parents, whatever. You find a way to do it with love and compassion and understanding and empathy. And for the most part, they will thank you for it.
Yeah. And I think there's the assumption or whatever, or the idea like that if they leave the profession, people use the phrase, oh, they just couldn't cut it. Well, no, that's not they just couldn't cut it. It's like saying, we've all seen that cartoon with the fish trying to climb the tree. It's like, that's not what they were made to do. People are made to be teachers. It is a calling. It is something that is in you. And
you're preaching.
And if it is not, you are a fish trying to climb a tree and it's never going to get any better. You know what I mean? Go find where the ocean is or the sea or whatever it is. It's going to work for you because there's something else for you. And this ain't it. And it's going to be better for the school and it's going to be better for you. And we'll all be fine. So, just keep going with that. Oh, but you took me back to a memory with the eyes in the back of the head. I remember my dad told me the story I share with here, and he's been on the podcast. My dad taught 38 years, and he taught in high school. And, it was this kid. He had known the kid, and I forget what he was correcting the kid for, but it was in the hallway, and the kid was doing something, and he's saying something to the kid, and he corrected him, but he knew the personality. So he turned around, he's walking down the hall. He goes about 5 or 6 steps. He goes, "Put that finger away." I go, "Mr. Mealy, how'd you know?" I'm like, "I got eyes in the back of my head. Don't worry about it."
Right.
Just put it. But they just knew the kid's personality, and he took a guess, and he knew that was like something that the kid would do.
That's a teacher at heart.
Right.
That's a teacher at heart, man. You can't make that kind of stuff up.
No,
You know what
and
I mean?
that kid's telling that story for, the rest of their life. I remember the time Mr. Mealy told me to put that finger away.
And that's still a connection. Like, that still shows that
Oh,
kid, hey,
yes.
this person understands. Like,
Right.
even if we don't get along,
Right.
like, if they feel understood, like, that's something important. That's how you build a community. Thank you so much for being here. I do have one last question. You said you spent 6 months working at central office. And I don't think we've ever had a guest who's, like, done that, worked in, like,
No.
an educational central office. What was that like?
Yeah, what do you do? What guys do all day?
I'm gonna tell you what's funny to Disco. I have never had a person ask me that question. You're the first one to ask me.
I'm so
that.
curious. It's
It
like
is the worst. Listen, people don't say good morning. I'm used to working in school. Everybody says good morning. How you doing? You're bringing people coffee. It's the coldest winter ever. And I mean, I'm like, I dreaded it, man. And then I'm seeing these people making these decisions. I'll give you an example. I heard these 2 administrators. They were talking about how they have this after school program, and the teachers and they keep getting the attendance, after like 4 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock. And I'm saying to myself, so you mean you want a person that school ends at 3:30? So you want them to take attendance and run this after school program? What's wrong with receiving it at 5 o'clock? What's happening at 4 o'clock that's not going to happen at 5 o'clock? Why can't they give you attendance after the program is over? When it's because I'm speaking from a teacher's point of view.
Right.
I'm saying when a person's running an after school program, they're taking attendance. They're not thinking about submitting that attendance to central office. I mean, we're really complaining about folks being up. I mean, you're asking for too much. And they're like, "Oh, we never really thought about that." I'm like, yeah, I mean, come on. Like, they could give it to you the next morning. What are you going to do with it? You get off at 5 o'clock. Like, what are you going to do with it between now? And then, it opened my eyes to all of the struggles that I had as an administrator. I said, because we have people, most of these people who they're sending many of these jobs are people who couldn't do it at the building level.
Yeah.
So they go down to central office. And I don't want to, make a blanket statement. There's some amazing people working at the central office.
A lot of people
level.
fail upward. Yeah.
Yes.
Right. No doubt. Just like the people who fail upward in the building administrator role, as well.
Mm-hmm.
But I said that many of the issues that I had, I could see now were related to the fact that there were people working in this office who weren't in touch with what was going on in the buildings.
Yeah.
That we've got to get people in these offices who aren't so far removed from what's happening.
That's a tough call because no one that could do it well wants to be there.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like
when I walked in and said, "Send me back," I'm going. So
Right.
in January, they moved me right back. In January of 2006, they moved me back into it. They didn't believe me when I said I wanted to go back. I wanted to leave. You want to leave central office and go back? I said, yeah. I need to go where people love each other, speak to each other, and care about one another. I need to go into a school.
Yeah. Otherwise, the only people can do it well, I think, or maybe it's just me just goofing off and being hypothetical, but it's like someone who would be good at going deep undercover, whether like a narcotics officer working their way into a gang or a spy that's going to work their way like this. It's like, I'm going to act like I'm something I'm not just so I can go in here and make things, happen. Oh, but speaking of attendance, by the way, this is how I handle that because we've had policies. Have your attendance done in the first 5 minutes of the class. Well, it's really easy. I click the button that marks everybody present and click submit. So when you run the reports and you look electronically, if I've taken attendance, it's done. And then whenever I get around to it, whether it's towards the end of the class, at the end of the day or whatever, I'll make the attendance right. But me doing it correctly is not a priority. If I've got when the first class comes in, there's 3 or 4 kids that really need some immediate attention for something, or they're just going to be sitting there idle and not learning. Let me go over here and click this button real fast. Okay, cool, that's done. And then go on, and then I'll work out the details of the attendance as we go.
And that's being conservative, saying 3 or 4 kids. Usually it's more like 4, 5, 6, 7
right.
coming immediately and they need something.
Right.
Right.
They can't do the warm up or whatever it is that you've got as the, it's like, oh, well, have a warm up for them. Well, I have a warm up for them, but there's some kids that they were absent for 3 days. That's not something they're good. Whatever it is that they need, they like
because their dog just died.
Right.
There's 8,000 reasons. Now, I will say this again, and we've said this here. I had a buddy, and when he was in New York, and he was lazy about taking attendance. So I will go back and make sure it's right. Well, not during COVID because I didn't care then. And one of the kids robbed a convenience store. If you rob a convenience store and you're a high school kid, the first thing that defender is going to do is going to pull the attendance records, and they go,
right.
They say, "Are you going to believe this grainy footage and the testimony of this guy who is stereotyping my student or my client, or are you going to believe this government document that says he was in this building at 10 o'clock that morning?" And I mean, the district attorney, once they see that, they're not even bothered fighting. They throw it out. Not that I'm trying to get kids like arrested or convicted, but it kind of looks bad on you if you're the reason that someone that committed a crime is that you're their alibi. So don't do that.
Right.
Oh, okay. We're gonna wrap it up here, boys and girls. One thing we do love, and you've told so many, but if you've got some like funny go-to, like when whether you're giving a speech or you're hanging out in the bar or at a party and you're telling some crazy stories from the classroom, we always love like the I can't believe the kid this, or I can't believe the teacher did this type story. So you got one for us, Principal Al?
Well, I'll tell you. I mean, I got my doctorate in 2019 after a decade-long journey of trying to get a dissertation done and whatnot, but I finally got it done.
Mm-hmm. Students
have been calling me Principal L for years. So now they call me Dr. Principal L, right? So one little first, second grader in the main office, she calls me Principal L. He said, "You can't call him Principal L." I said, "Why not?" "You can't call him by his first name. You gotta call him Dr. Principal L." Go.
Oh my.
I said, "Kids, boy, they'll keep you laughing all day, man."
Oh my goodness.
All day.
So we had a principal, and it was a female principal, and I'm going to change her name, but let's say her name was Dr. Jones. Mm-hmm. And her husband was retired, and he would occasionally come by the school to do stuff or whatever. Mm-hmm. And so every time I saw him, I would say, "Hello, Mr. Dr. Jones." It's like, "I'm not a doctor." I'm like, "No, but you're her husband, so you're Mr. Dr. Jones. If she's Dr. Jones." Right. So,
but I got millions, just so many stories, man. We had this one kid, he did something, wrong. And this was a real nice honor roll kid. But for some reason, he wanted to be a gangster that day. He wanted to be Mr. Tough Guy. He wanted to be the Rock that day, right?
Yeah.
He didn't care, whatever. And I told my assistant principal, I said, "Listen, I don't know why he's act like that, because when we call his mom, he knows his behind is grass and his mom is a lawnmower, and he knows, right? So, he's talking, he's Mr. Tough Guy to her." So we start dialing the phone. He's like, who you calling? "Let me call your mom." He grabs the phone. No. Put me in school suspension. I'll do a year straight in school suspension. Like, what happened? You were a gangster a minute ago. And that reminds me of me. I remember, when I went to Massillon, for elementary middle school. Mm-hmm. And the vice principal, the assistant principal, Mr. Lagamba, used to tell a story how he was going to call my mom one day, and I grabbed on his ankle. Not let him call. Would not let him call. When I became a teacher, he was one of the first. He said, "Thomas L., I never expected you to become a teacher." He loves the fact that there were parents that would raise their children. The children never wanted their parents to get bad news about them. Yeah. Although we continued to misbehave, right?
Right.
We just never wanted our parents to, to hear, to be disappointed in the way, we were acting. We grew up in that age where you had a problem in school. Your parent would come up to the school, and your parent knew all the kids in the school. They called it by name. "You better sit down. I'll let your mother know you're not doing what you're supposed to do." And but those were the old. Now I got parents that come in now. I got kids who will come in with their parent, and the child will run the entire discipline meeting. Parents won't say a word. The child just make it all decision. But that was the age where that was a time where we our parents really were heavily involved. Children really respected their parents, and we need to get back to that. There's some great parents out there doing some good work.
Definitely.
So I don't want to say there aren't any, but there are just too many of our young people who don't have that experience.
Yeah.
And I know if they had that experience, they'd be doing a lot better,
right.
A lot better in school. And that's where the role of the educator, like people don't understand how, as educators, we become that parent for kids in school. You'll get kids that will just slip up. Children will slip up and call you mom or pop. I had one little kindergarten girl call me pop-pop one day. I suspended her for 15 days. Don't you ever call me pop-pop. But they see us as, those parents in school, for them. And that's the love that we have, when an adult, every child deserves to have at least one person be crazy about it. Yes. Every child deserves an advocate, like Rita Pearson said, some kid who, is going to support them, and be there for them. And even when they're wrong, right? Help me to understand that I'm wrong, but you have high expectations for me and you're going to help me get better. Now, my question before you leave, you had mentioned the podcast with the gentleman from England. Yeah. Which, how long ago was that? 'Cause I like to listen to that.
That was episode 27. That was October last year.
Yeah, it was a long time ago.
During the pandemic.
It was. Yeah.
So you guys were still working during the pandemic, huh?
Oh yeah, we started
in. Is never over.
So we started. Our initial episode was in January of 2020, but we did some recordings in 2019. We wanted to have, I think 5 or 6 that we had already done.
So that we could, some in the can.
Exactly. So that we could release weekly. But sometimes things come up, whether it be for us or for our guests. So we like to have a backup. Our claim to fame that I have to bring up every time, Now I'm not friends with Dr. Oz like you are. You know what I mean? Cause I which by the way, I don't know if it'll ever happen, but I now realize, now that I know you, I'm 2 degrees away from Oprah. So, and I want to get there.
Hey, listen.
I don't know if you've been able to break that down.
The greatest feeling ever in the world is to get a check in the mail with Oprah's name on it.
I bet that is so cool. That's right. She signs all the checks.
She signs and here's the funny part.
You heard her talk about that before when she talks about how she signs all the checks?
No, I didn't, but I was shocked when I saw that. The bank refused to cash it.
Really?
Right.
They didn't believe you?
The counterfeit check, right? I do 2 weeks, 3 weeks. I'm like, yo, this money is not in my account. So I go to the bank. I'm like, yo, why is this money? I know it's not a local check, but
right.
It shouldn't take.
Yeah. All right, Oprah's got the money in her account, right?
No, Oprah ain't broke. What you talking about, man? I mean, it wasn't a huge check, but
right.
It was a check from Oprah. I mean, because at one point Oprah bought the TV and internet rights to my first book. That's how I ended up working on Dr. Oz, because she was the producer for Dr. Mm-hmm. She basically set Dr. Oz up pretty much.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. But they're in the bank, they're calling the corporate office, want to know that, and the guy came and sat out and he said, listen, they didn't think the check was legitimate, man. And I said, that check is real. Put that money in my account, man.
Yes.
But funniest story ever, but yeah, wow. She actually signed, that was a highlight of my life. Now, never had a chance to meet her.
No.
I've been on Oprah radio.
Okay.
But, hopefully maybe get Oprah interested in this Lean on Me 2017 script, You guys are going to get the first interview.
Cool beans. And as I say, and if she's looking for a podcast to come on, I know she's probably just dying for some publicity, but let her know that she can come on here and we'll do our best. But what was I going to say? Oh no, because I saw her talking about, cause I'm like a huge Oprah fan. I mean, I watched her show all the time, and she didn't used to write the checks, and the person writing the checks was writing a whole lot of checks. And Oprah found out about it and she said, oh no, that's done. Nothing comes out of here. I write every single check.
Yes, sir. She definitely sent me a check with her signature.
Yeah, she signs them all.
It. And the bank tried to get me for bank fraud.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yes.
Oh,
yeah.
my goodness.
Oh, and the other episode you want to check out then, Principal Al, because I can't stop talking about this one, is we had, and he taught at Northeast High School. I don't know if you know this or not, but we had Tony Danza on the podcast, last summer. So, that was a blast. Him talking
about.
Yeah,
he did a TV show around that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
He had a teacher's heart. He loved those kids. He talks about crying when after he'd been about a month or so in the classroom and he's meeting with a mentor that he had and they're like, did you cry yet, Tony? And he said he just broke down and just started bawling there because just that first year frustration and
oh my, Man, my goal was not to cry, right? First week that was over, right? So my second goal was I'm not letting these kids see me cry. First month that was done. I'm like, these kids saw a grown man cry. I just couldn't. I had never been anywhere in my life where I told somebody to do something and they just outwardly refused to do it.
Yes.
Right? Like, yo, how many times am I gonna tell you to sit down? Sit down. Like, but
And how many people say, "Can you move your seat?" No. What do you mean, no?
Right.
And
that their behavior were normal reactions to an abnormal situation. This is a situation where there was structure, there were rules, right?
Yes.
So they, and they weren't accustomed. Some of these kids were up 11, 12, 1 o'clock at night, like no supervision. So I come in your room and you want me to not talk, not eat, not. So it took me a while to win over souls, but I think after a while they realized that if I'm going to I used to tell the kids, this is like a barbershop. It's only one person here qualified to cut hair, and that's me. Nobody else here. If anybody else here trying to be in charge, it's not going to work because I'm the barber, and you need a haircut. So sit down and get this education because that's your haircut. And I think after a while, the kids just said, "Listen, I'm using too much energy fighting against them. I need to just go ahead and work with the man." And it was much better from there. But it was a struggle.
One of the things that made so much sense to me. There are kids, particularly some kids that come from some of the tougher areas, that if you're walking down the street, there's going to be someone that's going to tell you to do something. And if you do what they tell you to do, they own you. And we know what they call you out in the street then. You are there. Exactly. You know what. Exactly. And so they have trained themselves. If I want to survive, I have to not do what someone tells me to do. And so when you say sit down or go over there, who are you talking to? You know what I mean? That
was it. That was it. You talking to me? But what you just said, the teacher and administrator who understands that like right away is the person who survives because they understand where the student is coming from. You understand their culture. You understand. Now, not saying that you're not trying to get them to a better place, but you understand why that kid may be responding like that. So I learned that right away. And as an administrator, also, when you walk into a situation and it's tense, and there's a conflict, and you think simply because you're the administrator, they're going to stop. It doesn't work like that. The administrator who comes in and says, "Hey, listen, you know what? I understand. You may be right in this situation, but let's not make it worse than what it is. You may not be wrong. Or I know what happens out on the street. I know that there was a fight in the community or shooting or whatever. So I know you might be a little upset about that. No, I'm not going to suspend you. No, I'm not going to punish you. No, I just want to talk to you." The person who understands what you just said, that kid is bucking up to me simply because that's a survival tool for them.
Right.
Is the person who survives, who thrives, who makes it, and who children realize that you are there for me, and you're there to support me. And you know what else they say? Is I know you love me before you ever met me.
Right.
That's the kid.
I can't imagine, but how many times a teacher must come into your classroom, shut the door, and then just start bawling as soon as they shut that door.
Yes. Breaks my heart, man. Because what can you do? Like first of all, you can't tell them you didn't cry because I'll be lying, right?
Right.
And you can't tell them, it's okay to, toughen up. You can't tell them that.
No.
It's like, so you almost got to just let them cry. And what I tell them is this is natural. Every teacher goes through it. And I start naming some of the best teachers in our building. Mm-hmm. And I said, go ask that person. Go ask Mrs. Ennis and ask her if she cried. Go ask Mrs. Wagner and you ask if she cried. I said, they cried because you care.
Right.
And that's why you cry. And usually they start to feel better. Like, oh, I'm not a real. No, you care. Like some people don't cry at all because they don't give a damn. You actually care. And I don't hold any grudges with kids. Every day is a clean slate.
Yeah.
Clean slate. And I think, Stu, I got a kid right now who's, projected to be a first round pick in the NBA draft. He's from Virginia Commonwealth. He was a CAA player of the year, Bones Holland. He's had a tough life in middle school, came from my middle school. Mm-hmm. And we were hard on him. Mm-hmm. But, and he talks about it often, but when he made his announcement in high school, his college announcement, he wore his middle school t-shirt, not his high school t-shirt.
Nice.
Wow. Somebody said, "Why'd you wear your Thomas Edison shirt?" He said, "Because at Edison was where I learned how to be a man."
Wow.
We were
I get goosebumps.
This kid is projected to be, to be drafted by the Lakers in the first round. Great kid, had a fire in his grandmother's house, lost his grandmother. He had to jump from the second floor window, had that surgery on his leg. They said he might not ever play ball again. fought back, came back, high school, scored 50 points in like 3 straight games.
Wow.
Went to college at Virginia Commonwealth for a couple of years. Just an amazing ball player, great kid. But the moral of the story is that kids can say some mean things,
Yeah.
but the last thing they need for us is to make excuses for them.
Mhm.
The last thing they need for us is to not discipline them. Discipline is a form of love. And
Right.
although they may not like you then, they may not be happy. Later on in life, they'll come back. And this is what I tell every kid. I'm hard on you now because I want it to be easy on you later in life. My goal is to get you in the Penn State instead of the State Penn.
Nice.
That's what I hit them with.
Wow.
Drop the mic there.
Yeah.
Yeah. But guys, listen, man, it's been real.
Thank you so much. Thank you
Great.
so much.
Thank
We
you so
really
much.
appreciate you. Love having you on. Guys, follow him on Twitter, buy his book, go see the movie, all
Check
that
the
kind
show
of stuff.
notes.
We'll put all the details and the links to the website and everything else in the show notes. And as we always say at the end, guys, stay unprofessional.
Exactly. You got it. Take care, guys.
Thank you, Principal L. All right. Good, man.